they're already on sale because they're not that good. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's video. So let's go over some makeup releases from 2021, dissect them a little bit, probing the question, what made them release this collection, or what made them release it? Dissecting all of these, beauty releases. I do have a series on my channel as well about, new makeup releases, whether I would buy them, whether I wouldn't buy them, and that one is called the Deal or No Deal series. So I will link all of those playlists down below for you guys, and let's get on into this video. What a really long introduction that was. For this video, I really had to do my homework and go back and look, and some of these definitely triggered in my mind right away, what were they thinking? This release just wasn't well thought out. And then I went through Trend Mood, looked at some of the other releases, and I was like, wait a minute, didn't they just release something like this? And honestly, that's what inspired this video. Repeats on Trend Mood that I keep seeing, but then it's actually a new launch. What? Okay. Let's go into the first one that honestly totally popped into my head, and it's actually one from Charlotte Tilbury, and it said that she released a new eyeshadow palette quad, and I was looking at this and it totally reminded me of her smaller quads that she has in some other shades. And Trend Mood was like, oh yeah, it's the packaging that really got me with this one. And I'm thinking, guys, don't you see here that this color story has been done by Charlotte Tilbury more than once? I went to her website and I was looking, and she has the luxury palette, which comes in a very similar color story, and then she also has the Bigger Brighter Eyes color story. They're all 4 shadows in a quad, and they are quite literally all the same color story, just with different packaging. And they're all $53 each, which, by the way, $53 for 4 shades. That's a lot of money. That brings it down to $13.25 a shade. They're not even duochrome shades. They're not even spectacular, beautiful shades. I could actually buy duochrome shades from Terra Moons or Cleona or some of those other amazing indie brands, and they are about the same price and they perform a hell of a ton better. So looking at this first Charlotte Tilbury, all I could think was haven't you done a color story like this before? All of her bigger pan palettes are all featured around this gold, mauve-y, pinkish color story, and then her little quads are all the same color story. I just feel like she puts them in different packaging. What? Moving on to the next one. We have the ColourPop Cherry Crush collection, and this one was just launched on July 1st. And I took a look at this one. At first glance, the first thing it totally reminded me of was the Strawberry Shake palette that they released, God, I don't even know when, but it's still up on their website, so it's still for sale. And it's kind of like a crossover between the Strawberry Shake, and there was another one called Main Squeeze, but the color stories are so similar. It's that reddish purple color story. Both those palettes have that color story, and now they have this one, the Cherry Crush one, which has the same color story. It's getting a little old there, ColourPop. We love the monochromes. Yes, they're great. I mean, it's nice to buy an all purple palette or an all green palette. I loved the Just My Luck one where it was the darker greens, and I loved the Mint to Be one because it was the mint greens. That was pretty good. But looking at Cherry Crush, looking at Strawberry Shake, and also looking at, Main Squeeze. And when I look at those 3 palettes though, Main Squeeze, Cherry Crush, and the Strawberry Shake, they all look really, really similar in color story. And I don't need another red palette if you got 2 red palettes on your website already. Oh, and here's a throwback for you. Urban Decay has released a new Naked palette / old Naked palette. It's a mini Naked 3 palette, and it's all cool toned shades. Now I'm thinking okay, yeah, I totally get the whole mini palette. Everybody's loving the mini palette right now. But wasn't the Naked palette released 10 plus years ago? I mean, you can still get the Naked 3 full-size palette, and this is a mini, and it is cool toned neutrals. I mean, About a year ago, ColourPop released their 30 pan Stone Cold Fox Cool Tone palette. I love that palette. It's one of my favorite palettes in my entire collection. So I can understand like the cool tone like vibe and everything, but like Naked 3 was released a long time ago. Like you would think that they would have released like a mini of maybe the Violets or the Wild West one, or you know, maybe a mini of the Naked Honey. But to release a mini of something that released like 10 years ago, aren't they kind of being a little bit repetitive? And it just seems so like maybe they're out of ideas and they just thought that making a mini palette of the Naked 3 would kind of like push them through until they get like that really good bright idea. Speaking of bright ideas and, you know, releasing the same stinking palette, Tarte has released another Juicy palette slash In Bloom palette, because I swear they're all the same freaking palette. This new Juicy palette has 12 shades in it. It is kind of a smaller, dumbed down version of the larger 20 pan Juicy palette. The 20 pan one is a $45 palette. And then they also have the In Bloom one, which that one's like a 30 something dollar palette, and it's 12 shades. All the same exact color story. So yeah, the 12 pan In Bloom clay eyeshadow palette is $39, which is really what this like Juicy palette reminds me of, because that's like, maybe that's like the original, and then they released the 20 pan Juicy, which is $45, and then now they have the 12 pan Juicy, which the 12 pan Juicy Amazonian clay is $39, and all three of these have very similar, if not the same color stories. Actually, the smaller Juicy palette, which is only $6 less than the 20 pan one, that one has very similar, if not the same shades as the larger Juicy. They just kind of condensed it down into a more refined version of the Juicy palettes. It's beyond me why I would release a palette that's exactly as the same as the larger size palette. You're only missing 8 shades. That's it. 8 shades. That's all you're missing. And then you're paying $6 less. Sounds like an awesome deal to me. This has been such a controversial topic as of late, like all over YouTube. It's been like everywhere. Everybody's been talking about this. These are the 5 pan palettes from Hourglass. They are $161 for 5 pans. I was looking at this and I actually was like, okay. So each individual single shade, like if you buy them individually, is $29. If you buy an entire 5 pan palette for $161, you're actually paying $32.20 per pan. But you could buy the individual shades for $29 per pan. Okay. On top of that, each pan is 0.03 ounces, which is equal to 1 gram. I did a little bit of digging, I did a little bit of research, and I have one of the Natasha Denona mini eyeshadow palettes. It's the Mini Nudes palette. It's a $25 eyeshadow palette. You get 5 shades in there. Each eyeshadow palette is 0.028 ounces, which is equal to 0.08 grams. So you can buy Natasha Denona shadows, 5 of them, for $25. There's a little bit less product in there, but the formula is fan-frickin-tastic. Like, it's amazing. Natasha Denona's shadows are stunning beyond comparison. And you can buy a 5 pan eyeshadow palette for $25. But through Hourglass in there, let's be honest, I've heard that Hourglass has, their eyeshadow formula is not good at all. But you could buy 5 of them for $161, equal to 1 gram of eyeshadow, which means you have 5 grams of eyeshadow in the entire thing. Where you could buy a Natasha Denona for $25 and you get almost the same amount of product for $140 less. Hourglass, what are you thinking here? Like, did you guys not do the math on your own singles formulas? Like $29 for an individual pan, $161 for 5 of them. That's $32.20 per pan. I could buy 5 individual shades and save myself some money. Let's go on to the ColourPop Neon collection. I saw this in a ColourPop group I am on Facebook, and my first comment was, I want to buy a neutral eyeshadow palette with 1 neon color, said no makeup lover ever. When I see a like neon eyeshadow palette, like I want neon. I don't want neutrals with a splash of neon. I want like legit neon. Like it's okay for them to throw in there maybe a really good like transition shade. That doesn't bother me. A girl could use a really good transition shade. But 1 neutral shade and then the rest of them be neon. Not 1 neon shade and the rest of it be neutral. Like you can't call it a neon palette and it have that many neutrals in there. And it honestly brought me back to the Huda Beauty like neon collection that she produced. She had more neons in there. Like, you know, you got 9 pans, you got a whole bunch of neons in there. And I mean, obviously the price difference, there was one, but the fact that Huda ran with the whole like neon collection, the neon theme, she put more than 1 neon shade in there, and it was mixed a little bit with some like kind of neutral colors that would like help blend the shades together. The color stories made sense. But I feel like ColourPop just really missed the mark with this collection. They didn't understand what it means to have like a neon collection. They thought, oh, let's just do some nudes with 1 neon shade. Like, if you're gonna do a neon collection, go all out or just don't do it. Like, take a chance, take a risk, make a beautiful color story, and see what people think of it. Because people were more offended and opinionated and not wanting to buy it because they didn't run with it. They just kind of went, oh, just slap a neon shade in there. We're going to put the rest of those neutrals in there. We're good. There's a lot of ColourPop in here today, just in case you guys don't know. Maybe this is like a ColourPop slash like Makeup Revolution roast because we're coming up on Makeup Revolution. Let's get into the Makeup Revolution right now, and let's talk about that Bratz collab that just recently launched, like probably a couple of weeks ago. I saw this, you know, all over YouTube. I saw people talking about this collection. I was like, oh, Bratz, that's a cool idea. Like, they were trendy, they were different, they had like really dramatic eyeshadow and lipstick for being the dolls that they were. Like, they were known for being like over the top. And I was like, oh, this collection should be really cool. And then I took a look at it and I was like, this collection is not really cool at all. I feel like Makeup Revolution gets these really amazing collaborations where they could really, like, they have the potential to run with it and create something amazing, but then they just like dull it down and they turn it into something where it's like repetitive everything, and then the packaging is what looks okay. There's another collection that maybe we'll just talk about after this one, but the Bratz collab, like, they had 5 palettes. Why you need 5 for a Bratz collaboration is beyond me. I actually love when like ColourPop would do those like smaller 4-pan palettes from like Animal Crossing, and they also did a Hello Kitty one. I thought that was a little bit more, it was a little bit more consumer friendly because you had those individual color stories, or you could buy the whole collection and like, you know, present it together. Whereas like this Bratz collection, every single eyeshadow palette has like so many eyeshadows in it. And it's just like all the color stories look like they're so repetitive. Like they could have taken the blue, the orange, the pink, and the purple. They could have dumbed it down to, you know, maybe a 6-pan eyeshadow palette or a 9-pan eyeshadow palette instead of over 20 shades per palette. And then they have this really large one that also has a lot of shades in it, and they all look repetitive and the same. Like, I guarantee you, you go through, you swatch these eyeshadow palettes and you swatch each individual shade across the board, and I guarantee you that there's repeat eyeshadow singles like in each palette, whereas they could have dumbed it down a lot more. They could have condensed it. They could have really honed in on these 4 Bratz dolls, and they could have created like 4 amazing eyeshadow palettes and then just left out the huge one that you don't need. Or they could have done 4 eyeshadows, 1 amazing like face palette with like, you know, glimmery, beautiful highlighters, like some of those frosted highlighters, the pinks and the blues, because that's what Brat dolls are all about. They were known for their highlight. They were known for their bright, bold lips, their bright, beautiful eyes. So they definitely could have run with that more. And instead they took it and they made 5 huge eyeshadow palettes. They made a couple of lip products, a couple of eye products. I think they even have eyeliner in here. I don't know. And then they had this like fuzzy makeup bag. Like they could have had so much fun with this, and I feel like just the packaging is what they focused on, and then they threw eyeshadow into each palette. Like they just didn't care. Okay, so let's roast the other Makeup Revolution collaboration. I'm not sure if this, I think this ended, it like launched right at the end of 2020 and in the beginning of 2021 because it was like it was this huge collaboration that they did with friends. And they launched like half of it at 2020 and half of it into 2021. It was like right around the turn of the year where they launched this, and I don't quite remember if it was all the way into 2021. I think there were a couple things in at the very, very beginning of 2021. And I did find this on Trend Mood, the whole Friends collaboration. Now again, with the packaging is adorable. They ran with the packaging as far as it goes with like the TV show, like He's Your Lobster. They had the peephole door frame, and they had like the purple in there. They also had some of the like the cab in there, the turkey with the eyeglasses that Monica was wearing and dancing on top of her head. Like you have that kind of stuff. And they had Marcel the monkey. And that was great. Awesome. So they had 3 9-pan actually they had not 3, they had actually 6 9-pan palettes, and they all represented Monica, Rachel, Phoebe, Joey, Chandler, and Ross. All 6 of them it featured. And honestly, they could have ran with, I do like how they did like the individual palettes for Monica, Phoebe, and Rachel. I thought that was a splendid idea. They were the main leading ladies, 9-pan palettes each. But the eyeshadow palettes were not representative of their characters, like at all. Like for Phoebe, I definitely expected that eyeshadow palette to be something like bright and playful, something like out of the box. Like Phoebe was eccentric, she was out of the box, she was somebody who, you know, marched to her own drum. I expected her eyeshadow to be like that, and it wasn't. And then you had Monica's, and Monica's, I don't even remember what Monica's looked like, and that's saying something because that's how much it just didn't, like, it was not impressive by any means at all. And I remember Rachel's was very similar to Monica's, and it just didn't represent their characters at all. Like, Rachel was very, like, fashion forward, trendy, and then there is Monica, who was, like, the basic one, who wasn't very fashion forward, but she also, like, had that, like, classic beauty to her. I mean, Courtney Cox, of course. And they didn't play on any of that at all. They didn't capture any of their characters at all. And then you had Chandler, Joey, and Ross. Their eyeshadow palettes were more fun, but again, they made no sense. And why are you making an eyeshadow palette for Chandler, Ross, and Joey? Like, somebody please explain that to me. Especially when those eyeshadow palettes turned up being way better than the girls' eyeshadow palettes. Like, that's just ridiculous to me. And then they had 2 larger panned palettes. One was with the fountain, one was with the door. So overall, they had 8 eyeshadow palettes for this entire collection. Like, hello, you guys have overdone this way too much. I just can't believe that they had all that. They had these cute little beauty blenders. Yeah, that's adorable. And then they had, I don't even know what that is, setting sprays with the different characters on it. They had the Ichiban lip gloss that Joey did the advertisement for, the blue lip gloss. That was a good idea. Actually, I loved that one. That was amazing, not gonna lie. I honestly think that they should have done a play on Ross's like artificial tan and made like a bronzer or something. That would have been hilarious. And, you know, they didn't play on the TV show enough. And this collection was just a bomb. Total fail. Awful. Okay, so let's move on from Makeup Revolution now that I've roasted them for a couple times now. And let's move on. Cruella de Vil. There's actually a couple of really cool collaborations that came out, and I was expecting so much from it, and I got nothing. There was a nail polish collection with Sally Hansen. That one was interesting. There were some different colors in there. I was like, nail polish, whatever. Like, I want the makeup. So MAC did a collection with Cruella de Vil, and it is not what I expected, like, at all. So there were 8 shades in this eyeshadow palette, and they don't remind me of Cruella de Vil in any way at all. Plus the fact that the eyeshadow palette itself is like laid out really funny. They're laid out in like a square. So much room is taken up with just like blank space, and they could have actually created a more dynamic eyeshadow palette that was it had more shades, it was more inclusive, and it represented who Cruella de Vil is, her backstory, and you know, if there's different renditions of Cruella de Vil, in one of them from ABC Family's Once Upon a Time, Cruella was she was hidden away from society. Her mother hid her away from society because she was known for killing off her mother's husbands. That's one rendition of it. There's other renditions where she was abused as a child, and you know, that's how she kind of turned into the person that she was. And I feel like Mac could have honed in on one of those backstories. They could have honed in on like the time that she grew up in, like the 20s, the 30s, that classic makeup, done that beautiful classic like bold red lip, you know, those really, really dark eyebrows, and then those like bold eyes. And I think that they could have really just like run with this collection. I feel like they didn't. They did a duo, like it's like a face and cheek, but at the same time, like it's not reminiscent of the Cruella de Vil story at all. I would have to actually do a little bit more research on that, but it did not capture Cruella de Vil. It didn't capture the whole story. It didn't capture anything in the actual eyeshadow. It was laid out funny. The colors chosen were really weird. Even the face products, like the yellow pink, like what were they thinking? Like these don't match like anything with the way that Cruella looked at all, the fashion forwardness that she had. I mean, Cruella was a fashion icon. She was a fashion designer. I just feel like none of the collection at all encompassed who she is as a character. As a makeup consumer, even as, okay, like taking a step back from being on YouTube, being well into the beauty community, following all of these YouTube influencers, being, you know, one of those opinionated people in the beauty community, if I were a consumer, your everyday average consumer, taking a look at some of these products, pretty sure I would still be catching on to the fact that like ColourPop has one palette that has one nude in it. And I would be catching on to the fact that they have a Making Mops palette and a Fine Feathered palette that are exactly the same. Or the Hourglass. $161 for 5 shades when I can buy Natasha Denona for almost the same amount of product at $25. Like, as a consumer, as a regular consumer, I would be catching on to this. And as somebody in the beauty industry, I pay attention to it even more. And I feel like makeup brands just they are not putting a lot of effort into it these days. Some collections are fantastic. They come out with beautiful color stories, beautiful formulas, well thought out launches. And then there's ones where they're like, oh, let's try it because we've been given this opportunity. Either we go way too much, like Makeup Revolution, or way too little, like the Neons, or or like, you know, Cruella, they do just way too little and they don't hone in on what the actual collaboration means, what the launch means. They aren't doing their research. They're just kind of like slapping a label on it, putting some random colors in there and calling it a day. Where's the creativity? Where's the thought process? Where is the focus? Like, so many new beauty launches come out that people get overwhelmed. So don't you want your collaboration, don't you want your launch to be something well thought out, processed, something that catches the consumer's eye instead of kind of deters them away from it? No, as a marketing position, somebody in a marketing position, I would want to promote my company like that, not in a way, not in a light that they've been doing with some of these makeup launches. They haven't been hitting the bar. I hope you guys like this video, my awesome roast on all these makeup collections. What were they thinking? Why wasn't there a thought process to these makeup collections? If you guys want to see more videos like this where we kind of dive a little bit deeper into these makeup collections, where not only I do have my Deal or No Deal complete series where like, will I buy the new makeup launch, but like actually looking back and seeing like why this is such a bad launch, my opinions on it, my unfiltered opinions on it, and you know, maybe you guys would like to see, you know, my opinions on what they should have been. If you guys want to see a video like that, please leave me a comment below. I would love to hear your opinions, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye! It's a $25 There was, if I were